Is it at the next call meeting, or can we call a meeting right now?
Right.
All right. Let's call a meeting. After we adjourn.
So, it's just like consent agenda meeting.
Okay, all right. So the items, well, why don't we just, all right.
So,
So item 8.1, approval of the minutes. Y'all will good with that, with the changes?
yes,
Item 8.2, project time extension to March 31st, you good with that one?
yes,
Okay. Then item 8.4, the,
8-3 as well.
yes, 8.3, the credit card limit increase to 15,000, good with that. Add the regions, add the users to the regions card, good with that. So item 8.5, City of Lina, good with that. So somebody make a motion, we approve those items. Is that good, Steve?
Consent agenda
The
including.
consent agenda including those items.
So,
Is there a second?
hang on.
Discussion. All in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. That leaves,
Hang on, that was your left hand, I don't know, I'm just making sure.
Thanks, Bud.
Your other right, right.
that leaves item
No
8.6.
technicality.
It's your right.
So the authorizing resolution for the 2017 True Hotel bond. Someone grab a
Move
motion.
for approval.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Explain. I don't understand what
There's no second, so the motion dies for lack of a second. So, let's say you attorney.
You don't consent to the deal, it's really not.
Like we've come a long way to
Yep. Sure have.
hit this wall right at the end. We could have maybe ameliorated this at earlier meetings, but whatever.
House developer.
I'll second.
The city. The motion, right, so the motion died to a lack of a second.
Well, I was going to second for just opening floor for discussion.
All right, okay. So somebody you want to bring your motion back, Mike? Motion, you.
I move to approve authorizing resolution, Hayville 2017 municipal bond, Hayville Development Authority, Series 2018.
Okay. All right. Now you're going to second.
I'll second for discussion.
All right, thank you. All right, now we're up for discussion.
Sorry, can I start? Because it'll be fast. So, I get what you're saying. I'm not a lawyer. So, when it was brought to my attention that there could be a violation of the law, I feel like it's my job to do my due diligence to make sure either it is legal or it is not. I'm not necessarily for or against it, I just want to make sure the law is followed. So that.
Well, to that regard, as Mr. Pitcher said earlier, when we have a deal like this, it goes to a district attorney. And the district attorney validates the deal. They either accept it or they reject it. We went through this on the True Hotel. I'm sorry, on the Solis Hotel. There was an intervention challenge filed. Then it went to bond validation. The intervention was filed. The individual that filed the intervention entered into a settlement agreement with the owners of the Solis Hotel and removed his complaints dropped his complaints on the validation of that deal. So that's the purpose of the validation is for a Superior Court judge to put their stamp of approval.
Yeah, I don't see it as a legal issue. I see it, a judge is either going to validate or he's not, or he or she is not. I don't believe we're committing anything illegal. I think there is always a possibility that the bond will not be validated. And I think that occurs every time, so that's all to say.
I think for me, and you know, which would make this an easier process for me if I had all the information up front about what potential obstacles could be potentially foreseen. And I wouldn't be in this position right now, actually. If, from a legal perspective, that clause, if that was brought to the forefront in the beginning for me, it'd have been a clear picture for me.
So,
It was only raised this afternoon on social media to us. We've looked at it. So let me explain to you about the validation process. I agree with you that everything that the city does, especially if something of this import, should be done properly. And what a validation proceeding is a statutory process whereby before a governmental entity can issue any bonds, they have to take it to the district attorney. The district attorney alleges in the lawsuit, the complaint, State of Georgia versus the City of Hapeville Development Authority and the developer. And the district attorney alleges the facts of the transaction, exactly as it's laid out in paper, and asks the court to rule that under these facts and under the law as it exists, this is a valid transaction. If anybody has any reason to believe that it's not a valid transaction, they're entitled to intervene. We had an intervention on the Solis Hotel. There's rumors that we'll get an intervention on this one. If we do get an intervention, the judge will look at the transaction in light of the objections raised by the intervenor and either declare that the transaction is consistent with law or that it's not. If it's not consistent with the law, then of course the transaction cannot proceed. If it is, it's declared consistent with the law forever.
I have a question.
Forever is important because if we proceed, we're going to be selling bonds for 30 years and nobody will buy bonds if those kind of decisions can be revisited over the course of time. Yes.
If we motion to table until the next called meeting, would a written clarification of the code that I referenced earlier by you essentially state what you just verbally stated as well?
Yeah, well, that and more. If you want a written statement on the exact code sections that you read out, I think there's 2 of them.
It was section 6.
We would include that in what I just said. Yes.
Particularly, sorry to interrupt again, but particularly with the case law that I was looking at in the Macon-Bibb County case, I think it was in 2014, there was a sort of bifurcation between somebody said a conference center was a convention center and another person said it wasn't. And that the person that was making the appeal actually ended up winning the case. So I guess what I'm just trying to say is I think there's validity in tabling it, like motioning to amend to table, with the auspices of getting sort of written clarification on that piece of code.
Sure, we can do that. But I want to say that no matter what I say, no matter what any intervenor says, is really not dispositive. What's dispositive is what the judge says. We won't know until we ask the judge.
So what would be, like I said, I don't know everything, that's what I'm asking. What would be less costly, waiting for it to get to a judge and it's not validated, or resolving any potential conflicts on the front end so that it's not in or denied on the back end?
We already believe that the transaction is designed in a lawful fashion.
Because,
So the only way we could move in a different direction is to accede to the validity of the objections. If that's what y'all want to do, that's what we'll do.
Well, for me, I know that we believe that it's been designed in a lawful fashion, but again, the caveat that was presented was this clause, and that's what's bringing concern that I need clarity on.
I'm not against tax abatements.
I'm not against it either.
I'm just pro making sure we're covering ourselves.
I want to make sure it's, no one can intervene. And I guess back to Mark's point is that can't hear me? Oh, I'm sorry. I get distracted easily. Mark's point that particular line item in that code wasn't brought to my attention, which is why I didn't say anything prior. So now that it has been, and I don't buy into the social media stuff. I heard someone sent me a text message with a link to the actual law. I would have raised the same question prior had that been brought to my attention earlier.
And I'm gonna be very clear too, I'm not here to push anyone's particular agenda. Like I said was that if this was brought beforehand, that would provide clarity for me, I wouldn't be uncertain about voting on this item tonight.
Okay.
What does this do to the calendar if this is tabled certain to the 20th? We already have one additional call meeting scheduled this month.
We have,
I'm not for,
we have time. We have time. We have time to do it at the next regular meeting.
So, motion to,
All right, so we have to act on the motion we already have on the floor. So, you wanna amend your motion to table?
yes,
Okay. So you're amending your motion to
and
table?
then motion to table.
All right. So, someone second that?
With getting written clarity on OCGA 36-62-26H, Roman numeral VI 6, with regards to how does this relate to section 2.04 and the memorandum of understanding, and furthermore, any case law regarding abutting properties, convention and/or conference rooms as it relates to that.
Okay. Do I hear a second on his amended motion?
A second.
Second discussion?
so I think really all we're going to be presented is our legal opinion about it. I don't know what other points can be made about the OCGA.
Well, I don't think there's any guaranteed certainty that you can't prevent anyone from intervening.
That's my second point.
And
We
perfect
could
world, you
do,
still intervene.
Right.
It could be filed.
we could do everything in our power to cover all the bases and could still very well have an intervening situation.
But for me, it goes back to having an informed vote. That's the thing for me. I wasn't.
If 2 more weeks is not going to disrupt the calendar, no problem.
I don't see this as a problem.
Thanks, guys.
All right, so any further discussion? Yes.
Mike had actually made a motion to approve and second by Councilman Adams. I just need both of those to be put into.
Okay, Mike, will you withdraw your motion to approve?
I do withdraw.
All right, motion. Will you withdraw your second?
Withdraw my second.
Which leaves Travis's motion to table as the only live motion on the floor, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? All right, there being none, all in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign, and it's tabled. Okay.
Sorry. I'm having some muscle problems in this arm now, so just in case you wanted to know.
All right. So again, I'll go back to parent council comments, and I'll start with Councilman Alexander.
That was it.
Okay. Alderman Radley, Councilman Adams,
Just want to thank everyone for coming out.
Councilman Mosley.
Here comes the list. I would like to have within the next 3 months, open to that being 4 months as well. I want the discussion to happen starting before the end of the fiscal year, just so we can have it as part of our budget discussion as well. Community Service Department has 5 garbage trucks, 4 of which are dated 2002, 1999, 1997, and 1994. Your running average for a garbage truck is about 150K a pop, and with an aging fleet, I think it's pertinent from a fiduciary perspective to start thinking about the potential for a request for proposals as it relates to both solid waste and recycling.
And 2 other members of council agree with that. We can certainly look at that.
We no longer participate in the vehicle replacement program. I believe council set up a couple of years ago. Is that?
We haven't looked at the sanitation vehicles recently, have we, Lee?
So that was just police department vehicles. Replacement.
They're less expensive vehicles. Sanitation vehicles are extremely.
Gotcha.
Are you talking about RFP for privatization?
Yes. But I'm not talking about letting city staff go either. So I know that's gonna be a curveball that folks are gonna start throwing, so. I think there's ways to keep.
That would be a
Keep staff.
good discussion for us to have at
Yep.
our March retreat.
Definitely. So is there two others in agreement?
I agree.
No, we're not, it's not on the agenda to vote on it, so
Oh,
I just
okay.
want to see
Yeah.
the consensus.
Yeah,
It's a-
for
Consensus or
discussion,
That's
yeah.
fine, that's cool.
Thanks. In addition, I know how we postponed the appointments of 10.3 organizational appointments. If we can make sure that by the next meeting, we also have sort of like, I guess in a timely manner, maybe like in the next week, the outstanding applications for board appointments so that we can add those to the upcoming agenda.
I talked to Tim about that. Years back, we had a reception for our boards, and it was kind of a dual purpose. Number one, it was to say a thank you to the people that serve on our boards, have a little reception or something. But number two, it was for applicants who wanted to be on the board that may not know what the appeals board does, what the development authority does, or what the planning commission does. So, because I don't think we've got a huge flood of applications right now. So, I know we just got one the other day for development authority, so I just, that's a thought for us to look at.
I like that idea, actually.
I like it too.
It's my understanding the board appointments will be on our February 20 agenda. Is that correct, Kim?
I can put that, I can put on February 20th agenda.
I just floated this idea out to Tim this morning, so that's up to y'all.
I don't mind if we do that prior. Yeah, that's considered another call.
If y'all,
I like the idea.
I think we need to get the replacements done as soon as possible. I believe there are enough applications for the development authority at least to cover those. That was my understanding of the inquiry I made earlier.
Adrian, have you still got Jennifer's list of outstanding?
I will have to get an updated list from Janet.
Okay.
I know we recently did receive one for planning commission, but I don't think we have any for board of appeals.
Okay. Okay. Maybe we could get some of them.
I'll try to,
Just a thought. Sorry, didn't mean to-
that's fine. I'll try to spitfire the rest of these. If I can get a update, maybe by email with regards to the potential of us acquiring the Fulton County building at 3444 Clear. I'd like to have a one-on-one meeting with Jack Burnside, not only just to meet him, but to also discuss items such as Bacon Davis reviews and compliance with him. I'd like to initiate the conversation by way of a discussion item, maybe at the meeting a month from now, on reinstating David Burt's hours to 30. See a confusion face.
Well, sure, I mean, he's not maximizing his hours now, but
All right, I have a few ideas on how they can probably be utilized, so. Started hearing from individuals on Hope Street, as well as just a general real estate discussion with regards to noise pollution on the I-85 corridor. I realize years ago there was a discussion about noise barriers, and in general, if that conversation can be started.
DOT has been promising us for over a decade that when they do the next lane expansion, noise walls are part of that expansion.
Okay.
So we have to keep fighting that fight, because every time we get our foot in the door with DOT, they change,
Leadership.
everything changes. And
Been
so,
fighting for 30 years.
I promised Helen King that she'd have a noise wall. It's been dead 4 years now, I guess. We didn't quite get there, so it'd be nice to get that done. They're in dire need of a noise wall for a long time.
David Burt, I believe in particular, had a possibility of recommendations pending the legislative approval of the 8% increase to hotel motel tax as it relates to tourism product development. I don't know who would be on this group, but I have heard through campaigning as well as the comment that Ms. Williams made earlier with regards to ADA compliance, possibly the ability for us to do a ADA compliance working group, something that's like a standing committee that doesn't meet on a regular basis, but might be able to provide recommendations to the city on how we can become more disabled person friendly. I referenced in the last meeting that I was meeting with the head of the Solar Crowdsource Initiative due to unforeseen emergencies for him. It was delayed, so I'll try to bring up sort of my notes on that to come next meeting. Talked with the contractors on the Fulton County project for the Hapeville Library again, and they stated the desire to come to the first meeting in April to get community engagement and give a general update on their sort of pre-construction efforts. The DCA has on file, and I think Stockbridge is the only city that has done this code, maybe one other city, but homebrew competitions. We have a budding beer brewery business, I guess if you will. It was started in our sister city, but you can't do a homebrew competition unless it's passed as part of your code by state law. So there might be the potential of us hosting Tri-Cities homebrew competitions in the future if we copy and paste Stockbridge's code. There is an event for sort of going back to talking about abled persons. Collaboration Church in East Point, Friday at 6 p.m. is asking for volunteers for Night to Shine. It's a prom event for folks with disabilities. I think it's sort of like mental disability, so Down syndrome and that such. So I also had a meeting with Lee and the city manager regarding the roof of Hapeville Fire Department, Hapeville Police Department, and City Hall. Thanks for prompting this, John. I think if we can include those sort of stratified over the next 3 to 4 years in budgets, and making note of that would be a good thing to do. I'm not sure if this is a traffic engineer question, but no left turns from 4 to 6 p.m. from North Central to North Fulton has been thrown around as a sort of traffic freeing up idea during the 4 to 6 p.m. time period when you usually have a backup due to no turning lane on North Fulton. The website regarding the North and South Central Rail project still shows that Perkins is closing, even though I don't think it is. So if that could be changed just so anybody that's looking at it doesn't get confused. And another resident had brought up the possibility of moving all of our city meetings to Doug Davis as a central location. I agree with that. It's ADA accessible. So with that, that's my list for today.
Thank you very much.
I have one thing, it's not a list. I don't know who the point person would be with this. South Arts has expanded their grants program. So they have performing arts grants. These are touring grants for different arts programs. So they have one for performing arts, so theater, live performances. The application deadline is March 1st, which I know that's really close. The second one is a literary arts grant, so for kind of events that will welcome writers and orators from a non-state cohort, and the deadline for that is May 1st. To kind of add on to our current film program, I think it would be a nice variety of programming.
Have to get somebody internally to do the application. Okay.
Actually, I have one thought, I'm sorry. Maybe it's a top question. As far as different the neighborhood associations here, I know that we, how can they get involved in the different type of, as a vendor in the city? Because I think that's a concern with several of with some of the neighborhood associations.
As far as our customers,
As far as festivals and those types of things
we
there.
have the vendor forms online. They can just fill out the vendor form. They all go into Holly's email address.
So do they have to be vetted to be a vendor, or?
No, we have neighborhood associations that are vendors in some of our festivals.
Somebody sells brownies every day.
Yeah.
Well, no, because
No,
that's,
we can't do that anymore.
Well, it used to, so I really can't.
so that's hence as to my question as to how can the because you want a community feel, and neighborhood associations to me are part of the community. And if we want the neighborhood associations to sponsor things, how can we expect them to sponsor things when they can't do things to fundraise at some of the things that we want them to sponsor? So that's why, hence my question.
It's a very valid point, and I'll speak with Holly Lovins in the morning time and see if we can get that fixed. Because I know we've done it in the past, and if we cut it out, I apologize. I'll just make sure that we get it fixed.
Thank you.
All right, folks, thanks so much for coming
Can I
out. We do have.
One question. You changed the agenda a little bit, and so could I make a public comment on what you just,
I've already opened the floor.
even though you changed the agenda, I can't?
Go ahead.
Okay. George Rogan, 2108 Woodland Drive, April, Georgia. You changed the agenda and you were talking about, the possibility of challenging a bond, but we've been set up. How can I challenge a bond if the city attorney sues me afterwards and nobody does anything about it? I mean, think about it. I was sued along with 3 others for challenging that bond. He was paid for it already. He goes down to Superior Court and sues on his own. And nobody has done anything about it. So don't talk about the possibility of challenging that bond when you've already set us up to be sued. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other comments, council? We have some executive session items, so I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session. We have personnel
And real estate?
and real estate.
So moved.
Second. All in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. I'll entertain a motion to recess.
So moved.
Motion to recess, is there a second? All in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Let's get it.